This video is going to cover the percent solution, which is Health Week 1, the introduction of that. This video is going to cover Health Week 1 percent solution, and it's going to kind of give an introduction to that. A few definitions to start with. Solute is the solid or liquid that is to be dissolved. So this is going to be something like either the medication or the drug, or it possibly could be like salt in a saline solution. The solvent, or the liquid that dissolves the solute. This is typically normal or water, or it could be some sort of other liquid that is dissolved, a drug would be dissolved into. I give an example of sterile water, normal saline. For example, like an IV bag, a drug might be put into a bag of normal saline to dissolve it. And then solution is both of these things together. So if you're talking about a salt solution, salt would be the solvent, water would be the solvent, and the salt water itself would be the solution. Let's talk a little bit about strength. Strength, or another word for that, is concentration. It's the amount of drug per amount of solution. Now, it's not necessarily what you think of as a medication, it's whatever is being dissolved. So this may be salt, this may be some sort of chemical, it may be a medication, and it's divided by the amount of solution, which would be a mixture of that water and that drug that you have dissolved. Now, the units that you will see are typically some kind of grams. It could be milligrams or micrograms, or it could just be regular grams over some type of volume. And, typical volumes would be milliliters or liters. Now, for the problems that we're doing, we're basically going to deal with two types of strengths that you're going to see. If they're dissolving something solid, say if they're dissolving salt, perhaps, then they're going to use the units grams over milliliter. If they're dissolving something that's liquid, say if I'm making an alcohol solution, I'm putting alcohol in water, then you're going to be units milliliters per milliliters. So it just kind of depends on whether you're dissolving something that is solid, which usually we talk about dissolving, or you're diluting, which is usually when you talk about something that's liquid. Now we're going to kind of review different ways that they can write the strings. Ratio is just a fancy way of writing a fraction where they put this little colon in between it. So like a ratio 1 to 2 would be the same as writing it as 1/2 or 1 over 2. And if you remember, how do you convert a fraction to percent? If you divide 1 by 2, you would get 0.5, and I change it to percent, that would be 50%. So any of these ways can be written as a strength or a concentration. They are interchangeable. So if you see one, you can write it the other way. They're all mean the same thing. It's just three different forms of the same answer. Solution also can be stated without terms. So sometimes they will not give it so many grams per milliliter. They'll just talk about parts. And again, they can be converted into a ratio, fraction, or percent. 1 part iodine to 2 parts solution. Example, this part just means they're equal amounts. So it might be 1 cup of iodine, 2 cups of solution. 1 teaspoon of iodine to 2 teaspoons. So you can replace part with any kind of measurement that you would want. Now let's practice, and we're going to fill in this little table. And we're just going to practice how you change a ratio to a fraction percent. Again, they only have to give you one of these, and you can fill in the rest of them. So let's start with a 1 to 4. If you remember, 1 to 4 written as a fraction would be 1 over 4. And how do you get the percentage? Well, if you divide 1 divided by 4, you're going to get the decimal 0.25. And if you change that into a percentage, that would be 25%. What does that mean? That means 1 part, and I'm going to just kind of do this for this one, for 4 parts of solution. Now, what's 1 to 5? Well, 1 to 5, ratio is easy enough. We're just going to put a colon between the numerator and denominator. Percent, we would take 1 and divide it by 5, and that's going to give you 0.2. If you change that into a percentage, that would give you 20%. And again, we would have 1 part, but this one would be to 5 parts of solution. 3%. Well, we're going to have to work our way backwards and get the fraction for 3%. If you remember, 3% converts to 0.03, and 0.03 would be 3 over 100. So the ratio would be 3 to 100. Now, this one, next one is 5%. So 5%, again, think about that, that's 0.05. That would be 5 over 100. Now, we would want to leave this because it can be reduced. That reduces to 1 over 20. So we write the ratio 1 to 20th. All of these should always be reduced to lowest terms. 2/5. And I guess I need to fill in these. I forgot to. So this would be 3 parts to 100 parts. And this one would be 1 part to 20 parts. Now this 2/5, again, we were given the fraction, so we could go back and write the ratio 2 to 5. If we need the percentage, we're going to divide. 2 divided by 5 gives you 0.40, so that means that would be a comparable to 40%, which would be 2 parts to 5 parts. And then this last one, they gave me the 1 part solute to 100 parts of solution. Well, that would be a 1 to 1,000. Well, what is the fraction? 1 to 1,000 would be 1 over 1,000. What percentage would that be? Well, 1 over 1,000 is I'll leave 0.001, which is equal to 0.1%. Because remember, you always move the decimal 2 places to get your percentage, but 0.1%. Now, in medicine, typically your percentages are rather low, so get used to seeing numbers like this, like 0.1%, 1%, 3%, 4%, because most substances in medicine are very dilute. Okay, we'll pick up with part number 2.